Hey everybody, Big Rican here with our weekly Mets wrap-up video. Actually, it's going to be about 2 weeks now since we haven't been on in a couple weeks. So we're going to go over a couple of homestands for the New York Mets. And, of course, the Subway Series happened. This past weekend was Father's Day, so we're going to hit on a couple of things with that. And also, a pretty big date in New York Mets history happened many years ago this past Saturday. So we're going to go into that a little bit, too. We're going to start with the visits from San Francisco and Colorado a couple weeks ago. The Mets lost the opener against against San Francisco, excuse me. Pete Alonso hit number 20 that night. But more importantly, on a side note, former Met Bruce Bochy, who's now the manager of San Francisco and has been for some time, won his 1,000th career game as the manager of the San Francisco Giants. That's like John McGraw territory. That's some big numbers for Bruce. Congratulations to Boch on getting that. Didn't realize he's been in San Francisco for 13 years. But that's 13 years, 1,000 wins, 3 World Series titles in a 5-year span just recently. Good for him. However, not so good for our boys. Dropping the first game of that series, 9-3. That was, of course, the Mets took a lead into the late innings, and then the bullpen, which has been doing this more often than not, blew the big lead, and then they gave up a 6th spot in the 10th inning. As I said, Pete Alonso hit number 20 that night. He's creeping up on Darryl, and we're not even to the All-Star break. The next game, the Mets won 7-0 to even the series at 1 in a very unlikely way. Jason Vargas threw a complete game shutout. He was backed by Ahmed Rosario, Adeiny Hechavarria, who's been great, and, of course, Michael Conforto hitting dingers in that game. But let's go back to the first statement. Jason Vargas threw a complete game shutout. No one knew he knew what the 6th inning looked like up until recently. But if you really look at it, Vargas has been the most consistent pitcher since his stint on the DL early in the season. He's been commanding his fastball well. He's been getting his changeup over for strikes and being able to bury it when he needs to. Vargas has been a revelation recently. In his second stint with the Mets, because everybody remembers in 06 he was here, or 06 or 07 he was here too, he was hot garbage. But now they're starting to see the Jason Vargas they saw when they decided to sign him just a couple years ago. Game 3, the Mets win that one 7-3. The big highlight in that game for the Metsies, Todd Frazier hit a home run, but he was impersonating Adrian Beltre off one knee. The only guy that believed that ball was gone in the entire ballpark was Todd Frazier. He has this thing where he runs around the bases and he looks at his wrist like he's looking at a watch. And he says, the pitcher picked the wrong time to throw that pitch. Slow your roll, Frazier. You really haven't lived up to your contract yet. Slow your roll. But I love the enthusiasm. I love the fact he took 2 or 3 from a very competitive Giants team going into the weekend series against Colorado. When Colorado came to town, the Mets lose game 1 5-1. Couldn't keep an early lead again. Late in the game is when the drama happened. Daniel Murphy hit another home run against the Mets. When is someone going to put him on his rear end? In all seriousness, this guy has killed them since he signed with the Nationals after the 2015 season and that magical run he had in October to get the Mets the pennant in the World Series. But he kills them. They need to buzz him, put him on his rear end, something. But late in the game, Murph hit the ball in the upper tank in what is now the Coca-Cola corner, which used to be the Pepsi porch. And Drew Gagno then threw high and tight to Ian Desmond. He got a strike on the outside corner. He hit him with a breaking pitch. And Desmond wanted a fight, and the bench is cleared. And you can see Gagno actually saying to him, that wasn't on purpose, bro. Listen, I like the fact that they were ready to fight for their guy. Alonso is not someone I'd want to be in the middle of a fight with, me personally, but that's just me. So the Mets drop game 1 of the Colorado series, but they come back in game 2 and get a 5-3 win. And in that win, Steven Matz was legit. 6 innings, 120 pitches, which you really don't see anymore. 10 strikeouts. Carlos Gomez hit another in a 2-run homer, another big hit for him since coming back into the fold earlier this year, being called up from Syracuse. Pete Alonso hit number 21. I mean, this guy is just unreal. Number 21 was the highest ball I may have ever seen hit. This ball could have touched the bottom of a plane coming out of LaGuardia. So that brought us to Sunday. And the Mets won Sunday 6-1 against Colorado to take 2 out of 3 and finish a 4-2 homestand after a rough end to a road trip the week before. On Sunday, Thor was Thor. Plain and simple. The Mets got a 3-run homer from Todd Frazier early in the game in the first inning. Thor took over. He used his secondary stuff very well. He once again had the hook from hell. His slider's coming, and he's starting to bury the changeup in the dirt when he needs to. He was very impressive. He brought his record to 4-4. Thor's starting to round into form. That's when the wheels fall off. We'll get into that in just a minute. So once the Mets finished dispatching Colorado for 2 out of 3, something that has gone on since the mid-90s started was supposed to start on Monday of last week and didn't end up starting until Tuesday. And that is the 2019 edition of the Subway Series at Yankee Stadium. Mets-Yankees. In Game 1, we had Zach Wheeler going. Game 2 was Jason Vargas. It was anticlimactic in Game 1. Zach Wheeler got shelled. Yankees won that game 12-3. 12-5. They won the first game of that doubleheader. Listen, the Met defense let him down. He got lit up like a candle. What are you going to do? Then came the nightcap. That Vargas guy again. Keep an eye on him. Vargas was phenomenal in the second game. He did have his problems early in the game. He bounced back, and he pitched very well into the sixth inning, and the Met bullpen actually held on to a lead. Pete Alonso, and I say this name every single video, Pete Alonso hit an absolute moonshot. He was trying to foul a ball off from James Paxton up and away. He hit it 430-some feet to left center field, the back of the Met bullpen at Yankee Stadium, where no man's land is left center field. There was no doubt. This was an absolute bomb. They later get 2 more homers that game. We call them Yankee Stadium home runs, or I would be a pop-up at every other ballpark in the country, but at Yankee Stadium, it's 6 to 10 rows deep. J.D. Davis hit one of those, as did the aforementioned Carlos Gomez. The Mets win Game 2 of the Subway Series to get the split 10-4 in the nightcap. The Yankees come to Citi Field in July. Can't wait. It's always a different environment, although the only people who really care about the Subway Series anymore, to be real honest, is the fans. And I know rivalry from my college football stuff. It's not really a rivalry anymore. Get us to a Subway Series in October, we'll talk. So once the Subway Series is over, the Mets welcome the St. Louis Cardinals into Citi Field for a 4-game series over last weekend. Anticlimactic is the best way I can put it. Game 1, the Mets held a lead late. The rain came. Edwin Diaz actually was pulled off the mound, was told to go back out, gave up 2 runs to give St. Louis for St. Louis to tie the game. And then they gave up a run in the 10th inning the next day after it was suspended. And the Mets lose Game 1 5-4. Game 2, another loss. Another game where they had a lead late. The bullpen blew it. They gave up a 4 spot in the 10th inning. Mets lose Game 2 9-5. The third game of the series, the Mets won 8-7. And the Mets won 8-7, and it was ugly. Here's why. Let's start with the first inning. Michael Wacha pitching for St. Louis. And he threw a changeup to Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso hit it into the third deck at Citi Field. I've seen 2 baseball players hit baseballs up there. 1, Mark Reynolds, the first year of the ballpark. 2, Yoenis Cespedes in the Home Run Derby in 2013. Alonso hit an absolute bomb. Gives the Mets an early lead. They pile on till late when the bullpen almost blows it again. Bottom of the 9th inning, Diaz gets a little, parachute off the bat of a St. Louis player. Flaherty is running from first base. He tries to score. The flying squirrel himself, Jeff McNeil, picks the ball up, throws the guy out at the plate. Why he was trying to score, I will never know. But that's how the Mets finished off their 8-7 win against St. Louis, the only win of the weekend against the Cardinals. Going into Sunday, on Father's Day, the Mets did lose on Sunday as well. Not really a great day, not really a great series. In that series, we lost Syndergaard to a mild hamstring strain. Jason Vargas was pulled with a cramp in his leg. The Met pitchers are dropping like flies. The problem is there's no organizational depth anymore. The organizational depth has been traded away. So it was a rough week. A 4-2 homestand the week before, 2-4 the next week, to go 6-6 in their last 12. Not terrible, but not great. So Sunday was Father's Day, and I actually did a Father's Day podcast that was put up last night. This would have been put up, but I had some technical issues that I worked out, and I think we're going to be able to get this up no problem. Sunday was Father's Day, and just to give a shout out to my wife, my new Mets Dad t-shirt that I'm very excited about. I've worn it since I got it. But more importantly, Father's Day is a special day in Mets history. Of course, we get the perfect game thrown by Jim Bunning in the first year of Shea Stadium. But it's always around Father's Day that something big has happened in Mets history because of June 15th. Now, June 15th, the first big June 15th for the Mets was in 1969 when they acquired Don Clendenin. But it's the one 14 years later that set the bar for trades in this franchise's history, when on June 15th, 1983, the New York Mets sent Neil Allen and Rick Ownby to the St. Louis Cardinals for Keith Hernandez. The move that set up, in my opinion, the 86 World Championship. Dwight Gooden himself has said, we don't win the World Series if we don't have Keith. Hernandez is a Met fan favorite. He is a broadcast revelation in that booth with Gary and Ron. I thank my lucky stars every day I get to deal with Keith Hernandez. But a father-child moment recently in Mets history really struck me, and I left it out of the podcast because I wanted to keep it on the Mets stuff. Of course, last year we lost David Wright. We didn't lose him because he's still around, but he's not playing anymore. But one of the most heartwarming things I've ever seen on a baseball field was watching Olivia Shea Wright, yes, that's right, middle name Shea, toddle out to the mound and her dad waiting to catch a pitch from her. I remember watching that game last September and having little ones of my own and having a dad who was very influential in not only my life, but my chosen path until after high school, which was trying to be a Major League Baseball player. That was pretty cool. And for David's dad to be out there, who he said was a big influence on him, even cooler, because Papa Wright was also on the field at the time. So that brings to the end our 2 weeks of Mets wrap-up. We are in Atlanta right now. By the way, it's Tuesday the 18th. Last night the Mets lost, I won't say heartbreaker, because quite honestly, they got smoked again, 12-5. But we are in the fourth inning in Atlanta. And oh, by the way, Pete Alonso has just hit number 24, a 2-run shot. It is 6-0 Mets in Atlanta right now. So we're going to come at you with another podcast this week. Going to do a special NBA free agency preview with my buddy Frank from the Clubhouse Sports Podcast. And we're going to have that up on Anchor and all the other podcast sites very soon. As always, we can be found on Google, Anchor, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, Facebook, The Big Rican on Sports, Twitter at Big Rican on Sport, which is my personal Twitter handle. And of course, here on YouTube, click the subscribe button, hit the bell. You'll get a new video every week. And most importantly, let's go Mets.